Now, with the launch of many manifestos, social media has also become one of the main vehicles to drive their messages to the voters. Now, to discuss how political parties have been using social media during their campaigns is SABC News social media specialist Sthembiso Sithole. Sthembiso, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the Globe.
Good morning.
And welcome to SABC.
Good evening, Simpure. Feels good to be back.
Indeed, indeed. First of all, from what you've observed, how has social media shaped the whole campaigning process for political parties and politicians?
We all know that political parties, leaders, they used to go out there in public back then. But of course, because of COVID-19, what we're seeing then, they were limited and they had to find new opportunities, new ways to campaign. And they then had to learn the use of social media, such as Twitter Spaces, how to use Facebook Live for them to engage with the masses. You would understand that most people during COVID-19, their level 5, and those tighter restrictions, there were no political gatherings that were allowed. Therefore, that forced political party leaders to really find ways and new opportunities to reach out to the masses.
Now, Sthembiso, if you look at the way politicians communicated about, 10, 20 years ago, it's totally different from how they're communicating today. For instance, former US President Barack Obama was the first presidential candidate to use social media, in particular Twitter, to advance his aspirations and, his campaign. And former President Donald Trump, again, took to Twitter almost every single day to communicate whatever is on his mind. So does communicating on Twitter have as much impact as communicating to the masses, in person?
The reality is that Twitter is not the entire, doesn't represent the entire population. But at the same time, the opportunity it does, it actually gives one an opportunity to reach out to those particular audiences that are on Twitter to send your messaging. And we all know that social media, of course, has that influence. And there are certain people that, of course, when you who like to engage, ask critical questions, and it's easy for one to persuade them in between.
Does age, though, have to do with how politicians, communicate to the masses? Does their campaign or the political campaigns on social media have, reach certain people in a certain way according to age gap or age groups?
Yeah, it's no secret that most political party leaders and political parties are gunning for young stars, and what better to go on social media, particularly on Twitter and Facebook, to reach out to those masses and really make sure that you reach out to them. Of course, there are Facebook where you can post a post, to target the specific audience that you want to, but most young people are engaging on social media, and therefore that allows them an opportunity for them to really ask those critical questions and have those views and engage in between.
Let's talk about how money and access to formal communication channels pose huge barriers, perhaps, to new political entrants, and how social media seeks to fill that gap.
Yeah, when it comes to election time, most political parties often complain about not getting enough airtime, on print, on radio, and television. Social media has afforded them the space where they can be able now to engage, to actually have their own platforms, such as Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and stream, and actually engage and have unlimited time to really express their manifesto, to talk about the promises that they have for the people. But most importantly, also it affords them an opportunity now to really look into the budgets that they have, of which that means then they have to critically look into the amount that they have, how much they want to spend, if the manifesto resonate to the people of this particular area in Soweto. When it comes to the electricity issue, that means the content that they post, for it to resonate with the people of Soweto, to reach them, they have to boost that. Basically, then there is that behind the scenes in terms of understanding the metrics behind the budget.
Now, Sthembiso, do you get a sense, though, in particular when it comes to the new political entrants, the new players in the industry, the new players in the game, are able to use social media to humanize themselves, so that their voters are able to connect with them?
Yeah, interesting. We've seen different politicians, the likes of, then former Finance Minister Tito Mboweni, he'll always tweet about his curry. He'll always go at length to resonate with the people on social media. That showed that he understood the target audience that he was talking about. So the different political party leaders who are now finding ways, the humor side, the funny side of getting people to talk about them. One of the videos we saw recently where political parties out there doing funny things just to TikTok as well, just to resonate with those targeted voters.
And I suppose you don't have to have big budgets, you don't have to have deep pockets or supporters with deep pockets, to advance your message on social media. But then In hindsight, you need
Yeah.
followers, don't you?
Definitely.
And how do political parties build followers, especially those who've just started the social media journey from scratch?
Yeah, I think a solid social media strategy in terms of what is it that you want to talk about, a proper social media content plan in terms of how you want to line that up, and of course, if you're talking about the manifesto, what are some of the key things that you want to highlight, talk about to those people, and most importantly, then finding space and opportunities to make your content to be organic, having video elements, photos, giving them an opportunity to express themselves, because on social media, people like to engage.
Yes.
It's no longer about now receiving the manifesto or the information, but people have probing questions that, of course, they need to engage. And some of them, they become difficult. We've seen Musima Imane also on Twitter Spaces, which is a new platform which allows people to engage and ask critical questions. And that is one of those platforms where we're seeing him now utilizing that space, and we're seeing other political parties coming on board as well.
Sthembiso, we know that social media is a potential breeding ground for, misinformation, disinformation, fake news, whatever you may look at it. So how do politicians and political parties alike insulate themselves from such?
I think what is critical is a proper social media policy really has to guide, political party leaders in terms of what they say. But most importantly, when it comes to misinformation, if in an event there is certain information that is being set up by a particular party or political leader, therefore it's very important for those political leaders to come there and sort of like have fact check, quick things that you need to know. If maybe there's a dispute in terms of you had promised that you'll deliver certain things in this municipality and one political party has failed to, or they have, then it's a matter of then making sure that we have that thorough research and fact checking. And most importantly, it's a dirty game. At the same time, you get those who really wants to manipulate the images just to make one look bad. It's very important to always set the record straight, but at the same time, for those who are engaging with that content, to double check before they share that information, so that we don't find ourselves, really promoting wrong information out there.
So does social media campaigning work in silos? Like, can it work independently of the traditional campaign methods, or do politicians have to do both? Like, go out onto the streets, go out onto the masses, go from door to door campaigning, or can they just sit in the comfort of their own home and disseminate whatever message on social media and hope to get a positive result?
I think there's still a need for them to go out there. That's why you see when now we're on level 1 and it's a campaigning time, then of course, because we're on level 5, they had to sit at home. But the people at the end of the day, they want to see you in person. They want to hear you actually to really check that you are the very same person that is is doing Facebook Live, is on Twitter. They really want you to connect with you. And like I said, social media, particularly Twitter, is not the entire population of the country. There's someone who said, who doesn't have Twitter. Probably maybe they might have seen one of the Twitter on our television channel, but they want to see the political leader in person, and they want to take the leader through the challenges that they face in the opportunity and in the community. So it's very important for them to be there. But then again, in another part where you're asking, this also poses the challenge to the IEC, in terms of, yes, they might have guidelines, regulations in terms of how political parties, how should they behave when it comes to campaigning, but how do you then extend that to social media? What are the guidelines that the political parties should follow? So that's still something that the IEC needs to critically look into.
Okay, so what are some of the most ridiculous things that went viral on social media during election campaigning?
Recently we've seen one political party where there was a parade, there were kids, and this political leader was just walking through. Another one that we saw was a political leader where they had a wheelbarrow, right, and they were having the wood in between, and some people find it that they were just fascinated by the fact that we do this daily. Why do you give us an impression as if we were not used? You're just mocking us, Those are some of the things. We recently saw our own president, where he was, of course, addressing a crowd, talking about the vaccination, and then people felt like, we hear you, but we like now to talk about what affects us, of which the time was about the electricity thing. And of course, the timing went there. He tried to manage that, but of course, you get one of those things. So those are some of the things that went viral so far on social media, and we're looking forward to seeing that as we're heading to the 1st of November.
Sure. From your analysis, how do people respond to social media? Do they respond better on social media? I mean, from these political parties and politicians, or do they respond better better to the actual physical connection with people and the electorate?
I think it's both, of course. Remember, in social media, you find those who are maybe sarcastic, those who are just want to poke you. Some who they see we're heading to the right direction, but maybe they want to distract you, but it differs, Abu Kokobetu, they're still out there on the ground, and really there, they are really trying to get the perspective in terms of what the community wants to say, which is different on social media. There, basically, chances are on social media, the audience is different in terms of how they want to engage.
Okay, now let's take a look at some of the tweets, posted by some of the political parties in their electioneering. Here's Musa Maimane, for instance, who's saying effectively, let the campaigns continue. Now with state money, we need citizens to take back the power to the people, vote independent, we need change. In as much as he makes valid points, Musa Maimane there, and there's Mr. Fix-It, that's Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula, who's saying that ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa is in Dr. W.B. Rubusana region in Eastern Cape, where he's conducting door-to-door campaigning and engaging communities around the progress made in this region and the upcoming local government elections. Okay, do we have any other tweets? All right, so here's Herman Mashaba, a new kid on the block, the leader of Action SA. He says, why are you still in Joburg? Because it has so much potential. If you can get rid of the corruption, put the people that want to serve in the right positions, and start creating an environment where businesses can thrive, we can build on of the greatest cities on this earth. I mean, just going through some of these tweets, Sthembiso, I know that some politicians may post inflammatory messages on Twitter. Are there any punitive, consequences or repercussions for those particular politicians?
Definitely. Voters are sensitive. What you say, what you post, how you behave. They can decide not to go for you. Other political parties, they can, social media users, they can give an impression that they'll vote for you, and they don't do the same. So it's very important for political parties to watch they say, what they behave. And like I said, voters are really sensitive. You might be having walking in the mountain, simply saying you are trying to see the challenges that people are facing, and others might see that as if you are mocking them, and that maybe might not really land well in terms of the messaging.
But then does it have legal repercussions, or will the IEC perhaps impose punitive measures on that particular party?
I think it's still a challenge. That's why I said then they still have to critically look into what measures they have to put in place to align that. And each political party, one would say, they should be guided by their social media policies. And the question is, as much as engaging on social media, do they know the pros and cons? There are, of course, consequences, but it's very important for that political parties take it upon themselves to have the social media awareness, because those are the faces, those are the candidates that will be representing them on those platforms.
And then there's the issue of the high data costs in South Africa. Do you think that politicians are shooting themselves in the foot, especially those who are focusing largely on social media? I mean, just considering some of those people who don't have the internet as yet and who can't afford the high data costs in South Africa.
I think it's a matter of trying to balance, and the reality is that you might not really be reaching much people. Some people are still struggling to get internet, some people rely on Wi-Fi on the road, to really get the messaging. So it's very important for them to really find ways to navigate and accommodate those. But the reality is that the messaging, chances are not everyone is on those platforms. So it's very important for them to find ways to move around, making sure that the message is not only on the digital platforms, but it's across on radio and print. But what is critical is making sure that there's some people, having an aerial view and understanding that not everyone has internet access.
So do you think that social media will be the future of election campaigning? Is it replacing billboards? Is it replacing print, radio?
To some extent, we're seeing that, but we can't then definitely say that's the case, because chances are we might come out of this COVID-19. But slowly but surely, we're seeing a narrative. We're seeing other political parties spending less money on airtime, on billboards, but focusing on social media. So for me, with that regards, it's that sentiment. Twitter Spaces now, instead of having that short space of time on a particular radio station, on Twitter Spaces you can go on for hours and hours and hours, and that affords them an opportunity to really make sure that the messaging lands to right people.
Okay, just before I let you go, let's take a look at some of the tweets. This one is from the EFF. It says in pictures, CIC Julius Malema holding Waterberg councillor candidates of the EFF in Mokopane. EFF councillors will not withhold information about wrongdoing given to them, but will report such to the relevant authorities.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
So I think for me, what is key, the reason, like for example, in pictures, that's content, organic content, how you caption it, and also being mindful that there might be certain EFF leaders, followers rather, who are following the conference or the gathering on social media. They might not be there in present. So political parties are now trying to accommodate those, to simply saying, we're going to give you blow-by-blow coverage in terms of what is that we're doing as political parties, just to accommodate you. And like I said, visuals play critical role, making sure that you have relevant videos and audio just to get people attracted and really getting the message to land across.
I've been following so many political parties and politicians on social media, and I've realized one thing, that they are communicating in English. I haven't come across, a social media account that communicates in indigenous languages.
That's interesting, because their voters come from, speak different languages.
Exactly
I
my
think
point.
that poses a challenge to simply saying the impression shouldn't be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It shouldn't be that it only should be, when you text, when you write your copy, should be only in English, because the people that you want to reach to are people, of course, that speak to your language. You've seen some tweets from the former finance minister as well. I'm just making an example, where he always tried to speak his own language just to make sure that he relates to the people. So it's still a challenge, and who knows, maybe when we wake up tomorrow, all political parties will tweet isiXhosa, isiZulu, isiTswana, and all other languages, of which that would be great.
Hopefully. Sthembiso, lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.